It is just a huge honor for me to be sitting in my home with a friend and mentor of mine, Melanie Beauchamp. Beauchamp?
Well, it depends what day of the week it is. So there's two ways of pronouncing my name. Beauchamp is the correct English pronunciation, and Beauchamp is the correct French pronunciation. So today is Friday, it's Beauchamp.
Beauchamp, okay. I think I've known you for at least 20 years.
20 years, yes. We worked together.
We worked together. Last time I saw you was at the farmer's market. And I go there like once in my life. That's why I look like this. And you go there regularly. That's why she looks like that. So let me read.
Remember we did P90X a couple years ago together?
We did. You were trying to kill me. You were trying to kill me. She said, I'm going to come over and give that fat guy a heart attack. So I always called you Beauchamp, but
well, it's Beauchamp. It's really an interesting name because there's really no incorrect pronunciation.
Yeah.
Depending on what part of the country you're from. But the most interesting story was when my ex-husband and I were in our post-divorce proceedings in court. And we're in court, and I'm French-Canadian, so I want to say Beauchamp.
Oh.
But he's from Texas, so he says Beauchamp. So we walk into court. We still have our matching briefcases. We're divorced, but we're fighting over something. And we walk into court with matching briefcases. And I'm already kind of starting to giggle because it's kind of funny. We walk in with our matching briefcases, put them on the table, and the judge says, will the parties please announce? So I look at the judge and I said, Melanie Beauchamp. And he gets up and he goes, Case Beauchamp. The judge looks down at the pleadings, looks back up, and I said, just another reason we're divorced, Your Honor. So the point of the story is, you can pronounce it any way you like, and Beauchamp is usually easier.
So do you speak French?
Un petit peu. My mother is 100% French Canadian.
Were you born in Montreal?
Toronto.
Toronto. I thought all the French were in Quebec mostly.
No, there's a lot of Quebec in northern Ontario, where my mother is from, northern tip of Lake Superior, Penetanguishene, all up there.
Ryan and I I lectured in Paris. Ryan and I were there a few months ago, and cool. what was that art area called that had the Mona Lisa?
The Louvre.
The Louvre. And it was so funny because, being a bunch of hillbillies, I'm from Kansas, lived out here. We just wanted to see the Mona Lisa, take a selfie of the Mona Lisa. My God, the Mona Lisa was the most boring picture in the whole place. I mean, they had pictures the size of my garage door that me and three of the boys would just stand there just like, wow. I mean, and you'd be looking at this picture and you'd think it'd be a scene. But you'd look up in the tree and there'd be like a little elf or something. I mean, just all this detail. And by the time we got to the Mona Lisa, we thought, why is this what everybody talks about? That was the most...
So are you sure it's the Louvre or the Louvre? How would you like to pronounce that?
The Louvre.
Okay. Just so we're
and it was great.
Today.
And I also have one more comment on the French. If you think American sports fans are fanatic, you haven't seen a French soccer game. Oh my God. They make the Arizona Cardinals look like they're asleep. They're crazy. I mean, the soccer game fans are amazing. Okay, when Melanie Beauchamp was 5 years old, she was arguing with her father when he looked at her and said, "Kid, you're going to be a lawyer when you grow up." Today, she used those valuable skills to help others. Melanie is the owner and principal of Oracle Law Group, a successful law practice which has been serving clients in the Phoenix metro area for over 13 years. She served as a law clerk for Justice James Moeller and Justice Ruth McGregor of the Arizona Supreme Court. She obtained her law degree from the University of Virginia. She earned a master's in economics from George Mason University and a bachelor's of arts with honors from York University in Toronto, Canada. Her professional affiliations include member of the Arizona Attorneys for Criminal Justice, the Arizona Trial Lawyer Association, and the Arizona Women's Lawyer Association. She is an active member of the Ahwatukee Chamber of Commerce. She lives in Ahwatukee. You pretty much live around the corner from me, don't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. She has two sons. We both have a Zach. Her Zach's 23, mine's 22. A Vassar graduate, now working at the Food Network. And then Adam, 18, a graduate of Desert Vista High School in Ahwatukee, and two rescue dogs, KC and the Sunshine Man. She also enjoys volunteering her time mentoring at-risk girls, scuba diving, snow skiing, fine wines, cooking and eating, weightlifting, hiking, gardening, and laughing. She's appeared in federal, state, justice, and city courts, and I can attest she is wickedly smart. You really, really are.
Thank you.
So what we're doing here is, basically the news, ABC, CBS, NBC, they're always focused on Washington, D.C. and North Korea. It's just 24 hours a day about North Korea and Putin and Trump and Hillary and Obama and all that stuff. But no one really talks about Ahwatukee. So I wanted to get what I thought were the 1,000 points of light in Ahwatukee, which you're definitely one of them. And there's, when I've been, working on patients for 30 years. When they talk chairside, they never talk about ISIS or they don't fear terrorists or all. They're concerned about people getting killed in intersections of 48th and Warner. They get upset with a teacher at school. They're going through a divorce. Their son's drinking and driving and got a DUI. It's like I almost never ever hear national news until I turn on the TV. So what I want to do is I want to bring you in, a very accomplished lawyer for Ahwatukee. What are legal issues in Ahwatukee that your homies out there watching you right now? What do you work with? What problems do you solve?
Well, we can't speak of specific cases because of attorney-client confidence, but
Her name was Susan McGregor. She lives at 21 North. First Street. No.
And she hasn't paid her bill. Damn it. No, we can't speak with specificity, but I can talk to you about my experience in Ahwatukee, being on the Ahwatukee Foothills Village Planning Commission, and what I see as not just the current legal issues, but the up and coming legal issues are the legal issues that cannot keep up with technology. So we have huge technological disruption coming along, and we've seen it with the golf course. Okay, so what's happening is...
Which golf course? We have several.
We all know that the lakes...
The bankrupt one
yes.
that they're not taking care of anymore? That was the Ahwatukee Lakes.
That's Ahwatukee Lakes, and that's the issue here. So you start to say, well, how does technology relate to Ahwatukee Lakes? Well, because technology has changed the way people live. And as a result, people aren't golfing the same way. They are not picking up their father's habits or their uncle's habits and going to the golf course. They're more mobile. They spend their money in different ways, mostly on technology. So what I see is a lot of legal issues are arising over repurposing of land in particular. And we're going to see this, in my opinion, a whole amazing disruption in driverless cars. We've got parking spaces everywhere. Driverless cars don't need to park. Driverless cars also mean ride sharing. We're going to have fewer cars. 86% of the time, the vehicles aren't used. You start ride sharing, these vehicles are moving. It means less garaging, less parking. Okay, great. So now I've got an area that's now zoned for parking garages, streets, parking spaces that are now going to basically be underutilized. What are we going to do, just like with the lakes, when we start to repurpose those lands? That's a huge issue. It may seem like a tenuous connection to Sun Lakes, but it really isn't, because technology's changed the way we live. Driverless cars are going to change the way we live. What are the laws involved with driverless cars in Ahwatukee? We have terrible intersections. 48th and Ray is one of the most dangerous intersections in the country. Are driverless cars going to make it worse or better? I don't know. What are the legal issues around driverless cars? Do we now have a legal issue around driverless cars of you can have driverless cars in certain areas, but we think that you can't have driverless cars in higher risk areas because we think that humans are better drivers than cars when they're not. So that issue, I think, has affected Ahwatukee. It's going to affect Ahwatukee from the perspective of traffic, from the perspective of land repurposing, and also to crime is down. Crime is down over 40%. It's a combination.
In Ahwatukee?
In Ahwatukee, and all over the nation. Ahwatukee even a little bit more. Okay, the only crime that we're really...
Is that because my kids are all in here right now?
So, is there something you need from me to know that we haven't spoke about? But we've got technology again coming in and affecting legal issues. You just don't have the property crime that you used to. You don't have the violent crime that you used to. Everyone's alarmed. Everyone's got Ring at their doorbell, so you know who's coming in and who's not coming in. So you've got those kinds of issues in Ahwatukee where technology is affected. So what does that mean for legal issues? Well, you're going to need a lot less lawyers. we're even going to need fewer lawyers because artificial intelligence is coming in and removing probably about 80% of the tasks that lawyers now conduct. So how does that affect Ahwatukee? That's a very, very broad statement, but it ultimately does affect us because crime is down due to technology. Lead is being repurposed because technology has changed the way people live. So when I talk about legal issues in what's going on in Ahwatukee, really it's changed dramatically in the last 10 or 15 years. Kids are far more monitored and they're watched, and their parents basically have them on a technological tether, if you will. They get in a lot less trouble. Schools have them on all kinds of technological tethers. They get in a lot less trouble. If you think your spouse is cheating, technological tether, you have your answer. Why is that important in Ahwatukee? Because domestic violence and suicide are actually the two biggest calls.
Domestic violence and then suicide.
And suicide is an epidemic in Ahwatukee. Huge epidemic.
Suicide? Mm-hmm. And what's the typical domestic... can we stop and talk about that?
Sure. No. I think it's a really...
Did I not tell you she's wickedly smart? I've said that since the day I met her. Wickedly smart. So I've always read that domestic violence was the number one call of every state of every year since they started 911. Is it usually they're drinking, or do people actually do that sober?
Statistically, one of the highest days for domestic violence calls is Super Bowl Sunday because they're drinking and they're all worked up. Okay, so yes, alcohol is often involved and other factors are involved in domestic violence, but it's usually the number one call in Ahwatukee, that and suicide. So I hope that it obviously we don't see more of it, but I think that it's changing as well because of awareness, again, from technology. You can get help. You can, if you have a smartphone, you can have 911 at your door. You know where to go, where there's resources. Women 10 years ago said, well, where do I go? Well, you get on your smartphone and you're going to know that you can actually get one of the domestic violence prevention shelters to come and pick you up. Okay, so that's how I see things changing in Ahwatukee, and there's a lot less crime as a result of technology. Suicide's a huge issue here. Suicide obviously isn't a crime technically because you can't really punish somebody when they're already passed. Some statutes in some places obviously consider attempted suicide and assisted suicide criminal. But when you look at suicide, that's a legal issue that affects families. Families are left without sources of support. Usually suicides are a result of a terrible disruption in the family anyway. There's a divorce. There was a lot of suicides when the market went south.
In 2008?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, a lot of suicides, usually based on either a divorce or an economic crisis in the family. So suicide's a huge issue here. Nobody wants to talk about it because it's heartbreaking. Suicide amongst teens is on the rise and continues to be. There was an unfortunate incident at Desert Vista where a young man was playing football, had several concussions, was also playing lacrosse, and was in a lot of pain and hung himself. And they think it was due to the concussion. You never really know, but that was one of the concerns. So that's the number one problem, that if you said, Melanie, what's the one thing you could do to really bring awareness to Ahwatukee and change things, I would have a lot more talk about suicide prevention in the schools, in the newspapers, wherever people are willing to listen, in the churches. So that's, to me, the biggest community issue. And domestic violence is always an ongoing issue. Alcohol is an ongoing issue. Probably a bigger problem than alcohol is heroin abuse.
Seriously?
Heroin abuse in Ahwatukee is epidemic. It's epidemic all over the country.
Do they shoot it or snort it? Or?
Any way they can. But what's happened is, it's with all the crackdown on the oxy drugs, heroin's the replacement. As you know, you're a doctor. It's basically an opiate. So they're going for the heroin, and the heroin's cheap, and it's coming in through the Mexican cartels and also the reservations. Heroin's a huge epidemic because they have a lot of money, a lot of time, and not a lot of policing. So that's the other issue I see. And those are two things you don't hear a lot about because nobody wants to talk about them.
Yeah. People don't like uncomfortable conversations.
No.
They like fluffy.
Yes.
Fun
just
and
like
fluffy.
we like our bread. That's
Yeah.
why we take, all of the good part of the bread away, because we like light and fluffy bread products.
Now, if if someone is suffering domestic violence, do you handle those cases or?
No, do you mean, do I defend people who are charged with domestic violence
Yeah.
in that way? Yes, we do. But most of the time, if it's a first time, the cities have really good programs. You go in and you get counseling. So we don't really handle a lot of those because you don't need a lawyer to go into program. We just tell people go to the program.
I wanted to get someone on to talk about the legal issues of that Ahwatukee Lakes golf course, and they're like, "Oh God, no, we wouldn't. We don't talk to the public." Do you have any leads on anybody that could come in here and explain the whole issue, or? Because I see those signs all over.
Because I'm on the Ahwatukee Village Planning Commission, I wouldn't want to comment on that. Their city councilman Sal DeCiccio has views on that. You may want to ask him to come and chat about it.
I did send him an email.
Okay.
Haven't heard back.
Happy to give him a call if you like.
Really? You got his phone number?
Sure. Be happy to give him a call because I think it's a really important issue. It's a tough issue because there's too many golf courses for the demographic that's golfing anymore. So there's going to have to be a repurposing. What the right answer is for the community, that's a tough one.
Well, I feel sad because Ryan and I walk to my office. It's 3.0 miles and back. And a lot of times Ryan and I walk there in the morning and back or at night and back. And you're walking through the, one beautiful golf course and all these homes are backed up to it. And then you get to the next one, you think, God, that must be a bummer to buy this nice home on the golf course. You have this beautiful golf course. Now it's been like dead grass for how long? 2 years?
Yes, it's been about
and then when they start talking about like putting apartments in there or something, it's just a numbers game. I mean, if you put 1,000 people down there, someone's going to be crazy in there. I mean, so you bought a house backed up to a luscious golf course. Now, what is it going to be? Housing? Is it going to be condos? Is it going to be apartments? And apartments is a number game because in residential, there's only 2 or 3 people per house. There's probably low odds. It needs a lot of houses for this one crazy man. But when you put 100 of them in one building, it's kind of like a dormitory. When I was at Creighton, there were 88 boys per floor. Well, hell, out of 88 boys, there's one completely insane. There's 4 or 5 drunks. I mean, out of 88, you got the whole distribution. So I don't know if I'd want to go from living against a golf course to 88 boys, across the fence. That's crazy.
I mean, and people bought their homes with those representations. On the other hand, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with that.
Yeah, I love golf, but man, God, by the time you leave your house, you go there, you hit a bucket of balls, you play 4 hours, it's 6 hours. Who's got 6 hours?
If you're lucky, it's 6 hours. It's usually a bit longer, but it's a long, and that's why, a lot of the golf associations are playing with, do we go to 15 holes? You see a lot of the courses will do 9 holes now because people just don't want to take the time to do it.
One of the things that's always upset me about Ahwatukee is that, like maybe every 3rd or 4th year, there's like 3,800 dentists in the valley. And maybe every 2nd or 3rd year, someone dies in an anesthesia accident. Well, Joan Rivers died in an anesthesia accident. Anesthesia, whenever you have any surgery done, the anesthesia is always a dangerous part. Doesn't matter if they're working on Joan Rivers' vocal cords or pulling out your... But when that person dies, oh my God, the state, the investigation, they drag them before the board. And it's like, well, who designed what civil engineers designed 48th and Elliott? 48th and Ray Road. When you put a power center on 4 corners that people are driving around, which corner is it on? And whoever designed that has killed how many people?
Yeah.
And if I killed one person in my office in the last 30 years, I'd have been gone to the ringer. I killed 2, I wouldn't be practicing dentistry. But ADOT, civil engineers, they have all the data. They can design these big power corners and kill dozens of people probably a year. How many do you think die at 48th?
I don't know. I know but I don't know that.
I talked to some police officers that says it's about 1 a month. Well,
die or accidents?
Die.
Okay.
And there was some reporting, but let's say it's only been 10.
Still
10.
It's still too many.
What if Trader Joe's killed 10 people with some fungus in their cantaloupe?
$3 Chuck. That's probably killing a lot of people.
but you know what I mean, though? I mean, it seems like the dentists are held to, and the grocery stores are held to a very high standard. And the Arizona Department of Transportation, they don't have any standards because they know damn well when you put a 20, 30 acre deal on each corner, people are going to get killed. Whereas if it had been like 2 corner power centers and the other side would have been apartments, the death rate would have plummeted. You know what I mean? So,
but that's maybe something that the citizens of Ahwatukee need to raise awareness of and ask for changes. I mean, you could put some safeguards in, but the infrastructure is already there and the centers are there. But that's a very valid point. It's a crazy intersection.
Yeah, I don't even like going through there, and I consider myself a good driver, and it's like I try to avoid it because someone is going through that intersection looking, where is that store? Which corner is it on? And they're not even looking straight ahead.
So you too go around the other way.
Yeah, and then texting, that's another thing. When I got to Arizona, I remember seeing the list in the Arizona Arizona Republic. It was always like alcohol was like the number one cause of fatalities. And the last couple of years, alcohol is like 6 or lower. It's all distraction. It was texting. It was if there was 3 or more people in the car. It was all distraction. They're eating, they're texting, they're talking on the phone. There's 4 people in the car. That's really changed.
It's really again a disruption because the way we're living is changing and we're not keeping up the safeguards to match our new habits, and that's part of the problem. Honestly, there's so many simple things that could be done. You can't text in the car. I mean, the newer cars, they won't let you text if you program them appropriately. You just don't need to be texting in the car. End of story.
Yeah.
So we need to start keeping our laws and our technology consistent. There's studies now that show that you're better off being impaired. And I'm not encouraging anybody to be impaired. Let me make that very clear. But you're less dangerous, let me put it that way, as an impaired driver between about a .08 and up than texting because your eyes are off the road longer with texting. So until we start to understand that our laws have to equate the risk, that if you're texting, it's just as dangerous as if you're impaired. So our laws have to catch up. So to bring it back to how do our laws change, it has to catch up. And we're really not doing that in our legislature. It's tempting for everybody to want to chit-chat and whatnot in the car. If you have hands-free, California, as you know, new law, you have to be hands-free if you want to talk on the phone. It's been like that in Canada for a lot of years. And it'd be interesting to take those statistics and put them in front of our legislature and say, okay, you've got to make these changes because these changes will save lives. Interestingly enough, one of the biggest problems, in addition to texting and impaired driving, of course, is impairment by prescription drugs on the rise. There's a lot of people saying, well, I have a doctor who gave it to me. It must be okay. No, it's not. If you took a prescription medicine and it impaired your ability to drive, that's a DUI, and it's dangerous. It kills a lot of people. Marijuana, people think that, oh, you're stoned, it's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. It impairs you. Problem is, this is a huge problem with marijuana DUIs. There's no universal level of impairment. So at a .08, every expert, everybody will agree that, yes, they're impaired by a .08. You might be able to drive okay, but your fine motor skills, universal impairment, .08. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration demands that all states have the .08 law. They don't get that federal highway funding. Okay, so that's established. But the problem with marijuana is the experts don't agree. And it's kind of fascinating. So I could have 17 active nanograms of marijuana in my system because I have a medical marijuana card. Okay? I could get behind the wheel. And because I've been using marijuana all my life, I may not be that impaired. I could have 5 active nanograms of marijuana in my system, but because I'm not a regular user, I haven't been using for years, I use infrequently, I can be completely impaired with 5 nanograms of active THC in my system. So we've got states setting arbitrary levels of 5 nanograms is per se impairment, you're impaired. And Arizona is looking at this and we're saying, well, what does that mean to the average individual? You don't know, and the experts don't agree. So that's a big problem too, because marijuana impairs. There's no question about it. But our laws aren't caught up to the science and the technology associated with it. You know, you don't have a breath test for marijuana. You have it for alcohol. You do have a blood test, of course. But those are the things that I think affect Ahwatukee, because there's so much drug use in Ahwatukee, both marijuana, hard drugs, prescription drugs, and alcohol.
We measure bad breath. Did you know that?
I can usually just stand next to somebody.
It's it's actually measurable. It's interesting because you can measure alcohol, but you can't measure breath in it. But yeah, we had a machine. You don't really need it because once you do it, I did it on my boys. It was so neat because you only smell aromatic sulfur compounds. Like if you had a mouthful of pennies, you don't blow and say, "Oh, that smells like copper." You know, those are elements. They're not aromatic. They don't pick them up. And so what I do with the boys is we would I would have them before they go to bed have a couple of when they were little a couple of Oreo cookies and a glass of milk, and then they would sleep, and then we wake up in the morning and they would blow and it'd be about 350. And then the next night, before they went to bed, we'd brush and floss and use mouthwash, and they'd get up and they'd blow about 30. Because when you sleep, you quit salivating, so that food's all laying there, so the bugs all come in and eat, and when anything eat, it excretes, and so the bugs are eating and excreting all night long, and then you wake up with morning breath. So it's kind of and as far as the mouthwash is funny, guess what the number one mouthwash is to kill aromatic sulfur compounds? Swimming pool water. I mean, that swimming pool, you're in Arizona. That should be, if that was a pond in Kansas, it'd be thick green. But when you put chlorine and acid and lower the pH, you can see the bottom of the swimming pool. And I would have them swish with just the swimming pool water, and they could get it down to like 10. Just because the chlorine kills the aromatic sulfur.
Well, there's a mouthwash called Closest. That's a buffered chlorine
solution.
And that stuff's amazing.
How did you know that?
Because I've used it.
That was invented by my very good friend Perry Radcliffe, who passed away a few years ago.
It's a great product.
He was a great mentor for everybody, and now his son runs that. But that's what Close is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to tell us where I don't want to get sued or anything. So but rumor has it, Perry was drinking a martini by his swimming pool when he realized, what kills life forms fast and efficiently? Chlorine in your pool, and then when you lower the pH by 1, it doubles the efficiency of chlorine. So you take it from 7 to 6, you go from 1 to 2, you go from 6 to 5, now you're at 4, you go from next one's 8. So a swish of jacuzzi or swimming pool water, and you blow in that aromatic...
Kenzie's been in the jacuzzi, let's face it.
You blow in that aromatic sulfur compound, and it's almost non-register. Yeah, so across the street from my office, there's another dentist on 51st and Elliott, and the dentist there and the medical marijuana. Did you think that was a good move for society in Ahwatukee, or did you think it was a step forward or a step back?
I really don't know. I haven't really felt any of its impact. I think that marijuana can be medicinal. My sister was quite ill in Canada, and in Toronto, the doctor said, well, we'll prescribe marijuana for your appetite, and it helped her. So I think it has its purpose. However, if you look at Colorado, where it was legalized for recreational purposes, it's really had a drain on the social services in Colorado, because what it's done is it's brought in a different kind of element and type of people.
It's attracted people? Mm-hmm. They say the same thing about Vegas.
Yeah. And so there's an unintended consequence where your social services have a drain, because people just say, hey, look, if it's illegal there, I'll go. And that appears to be what happened. I think it has its place. Unfortunately, you wonder if people are really using it for medicinal purposes or just for recreational purposes. There's a lot of controversy over what's more dangerous, alcohol or marijuana. Alcohol's killed a lot of people. Marijuana.
Alcohol's killed a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's
so in
illegal.
your journey through life, have you seen more people's like when I think of all the relationships I've known throughout my whole life and all families and friends and all that same, it seems like every family has someone in there that was pretty destructive from alcohol. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I don't know really hardly any I don't know any families that were destroyed by meth or cocaine or, you know, all these things are in the news. But it seems like, you know, the three most abused drugs are alcohol, cigarettes, and sugar, and they sell it on 50 different corners in Ahwatukee. I don't know where, if I was, it's Friday night. If I was dead set I'm getting me some heroin and crack and cocaine tonight, I don't know what I'd do. They don't sell it, you know, but so it seems like the cheap availability, and I imagine if you were fighting an addiction, it must be very hard to watch the Arizona Cardinals game, just beer, 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 beer.
Yeah.
Or if you're trying to lose weight, pizza, Domino's, you know. So I just think since the beer, cigarettes, and sugar is so cheap and available, that's the most abused thing.
I'd have to agree. I mean, and prescription drugs.
Yeah.
Prescription drugs, I'd have to add that in there because they're crazy available. A pharmacist was telling me that a little boy broke his arm, and broken arms hurt. We've all had, I haven't fortunately had to experience it, but a lot of people had, and the pharmacist was telling me, he said, I had a broken arm when I was 12. He said, but the doctor wrote a prescription for 120 oxy pills for a 12-year-old child.
Wow, that's crazy.
So prescription drugs are the silent problem because you don't smell them. Unless somebody's really far out, you don't necessarily know how to recognize the symptoms.
Yeah.
So I'd have to add that in there as well. I think it's a really, really big problem for our community.
I never experienced the pain of breaking my arm, but I was married once. So I figure. So what are most of the what cases do you work on? I mean, there's lawyers for taxes. There's lawyers. There's lawyers are like doctors. They're very specialized. What do you do?
I'm become more of just a general problem solver. So I'll write press releases for high-profile people, athletes, try to help them solve crises. Quietly keep things out of the media. So that's why you won't hear about them.
You mean like when they break the law?
Or just silly things happen, or Arizona, it's so easy to get charged. Let me just step back for a moment. We've had cases where individuals will come to me, and the gentleman is retired and he's very established, and he said, I got charged with disorderly conduct. And I look at him and I can't see it, and I said, well, what happened? Well, he'll be in his home sleeping. His wife came in, they had a disagreement. She yelled at him, he yelled at her. In their home, she called the cops. The cops said, did he hit you? No. Can't charge him with domestic violence. Did he threaten you? No. Were you scared? No. Well, tell me, what else did he? Well, he yelled at me. Did that disrupt your peace? Yeah, it disrupted my peace, and he was charged with disorderly conduct. How ridiculous is that? So we've got these ridiculous charges that we're responding to. So I do a lot of going in and saying, really, do you, Mr. Prosecutor, really think that a man and woman can't yell at each other in their own home? And there's a crime there. People yell at each other when couples have disagreements. You hope they won't, but it happens. So what do? I do a lot of talking to the prosecutor and saying, this is really silly. Do you really want to charge this? And it happens a lot, an amazing amount, actually. So we do a lot of just kind of intervention, trying to work with the prosecutor, get these kind of what I think are overly charged and unfounded charges dismissed. We actually have worked on and are starting to work more on food allergy cases. When somebody indicates clearly to the food server, I have an allergy to nuts, for example, and the food server says, this is safe, you can eat it, it has nuts in it, the person served nuts has a reaction that causes permanent physical damage and in one case death. So a lot of the food allergy cases I think are really important to raise awareness. A lot of people go, well, I don't believe in the peanut allergy. Yeah, that's real and it kills people. So we're doing a lot of food allergy cases to raise that awareness. Basic fighting over money, as you know, contract type cases, litigation, jury trial type stuff.
Now that's business law. So do you do? You still doing a lot of business law?
We've always done that. That's how I started my career. I started to do some of the criminal stuff because it gives you more jury trial experience, and it's kind of interesting. So I do the sort of criminal cases where it's good people who got in a little bit of trouble. I don't do the major manslaughters or any of the major felony cases unless they involve drugs or alcohol.
Now I'm going to throw you under a bus and get you in trouble with all the judges. Explain how we get out of jury duty. What's the best way to get out of jury duty?
All I can tell you is when you go, you have to be very, very honest. And if you have a bias, you have to tell the court that you have a bias and whether or not you can be fair. That's all I can really tell you.
Gosh darn! Last time I went there, you always go down there, you sit, you go to lunch, they let you out. It's just whatever, you
they let you out like it's in jail.
Yeah, and
it's jury jail.
I forgot when you could leave. It was like, is it like 3? Or something, but it's like I sit there and go, oh, awesome! I only got like 20 more minutes. Howard Farran. I thought, oh god, that trial was 3 weeks.
And you were on the jury.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. What kind of trial was it?
Am I allowed to do it or?
You're as a juror, yes. Once you've been released, have you been released from service?
Oh yeah.
Then you can discuss it.
So basically, I didn't know how this works, but. So they come up from Mexico and you don't have any money, so they give you 10 pounds of cocaine, and then they go back home, and then they're going to come back like a month later, and you either give me back the cocaine or you give me the cash. So the guy, they came back, he didn't have the cocaine or the cash, so they took his wife, and they were calling him, and they were torturing the hell out of his wife, and he didn't know what to do because he lost the drugs or money or whatever. He called the police, so they put a helicopter in the air, they surrounded, they caught the guy, and oh my god, the brutality. I mean, I saw the pictures of her, and then I saw her on the witness stand, and it's like, I know you're Melanie, and I'm looking at that person like, that's her? And you're like, because she's all puffy, swollen, bite marks, chunks of hair missing.
Awful.
Oh my god, but I just sat there the whole time thinking, well, I thought actually a couple of things that were interesting about that case also is the fact that, they say, Melanie, did you ever call Ryan? No. Oh my God, they have all these phone records and text and there's a big digital footprint. They know where your truck is because your phone's pinging all these towers and they're like, at 8:52, you went through this intersection but it was a really, I just thought it'd be a learning experience. I mean, I'm a dentist. Don't know the legal world that well. And I found it very interesting. But, man, there are some crazy people out there.
Was it upsetting for you to look at those pictures? Did you feel like they took a little piece of you to go through that experience and see the torture?
I really felt sorry for her. I mean, she was brutally tortured and the other thing by a gang for 3 days. She was living like a dog. And that's
so sad.
Yeah, it was very sad.
Did she seem to be doing okay now? Was she functioning, or was she still a mess? Like, how did she do on the stand? Was she able?
Oh, she was good. She was very professional.
Good. Well, that's good. Maybe she's recovered from that horrible experience.
Yeah.
Poor woman.
Yeah. So what kind of who's out there listening to you right now in Ahwatukee, where you would be a good attorney for them?
Good question. So first thing is we ask someone to give us a call because it's very difficult to describe what we do and don't do. We problem solve. So the first thing we'd say is call us and describe the issue that you're having.
And how much does that cost?
Well, no, we'll just do it over the phone. And the first thing we do is a screening. Most people may not need an attorney. So, for example, if we have somebody who calls and they're complaining about their neighbor, okay, we indicate to them that there's various services through the various homeowners associations or the cities where they could go and have the problem resolved. So the first thing we do is to try to refer them to resources where they don't have to hire an attorney. So they'll say, my neighbor's doing this, my neighbor's dog is barking. Well, have you looked at your neighborhood services, called your city, things like that. So that's the first thing we do. We make sure they actually need a lawyer. And most of the time, a lot of people call and they really will have other options available to them. Okay? So that's the first thing we do. And the second thing is if they do need a lawyer and we don't do it, we'll refer them to a lawyer who's appropriate for them. We don't do tax work, things of that nature.
What is the number they call?
Our 480
480
704
704
07
07
77. And what we do,
Why didn't you go 0666?
oh yeah, it's close.
My mom would have been praying the rosary at your front door.
6 is actually a very lucky number in other cultures. So it's,
6 is?
6 is, yeah.
Yeah.
So
you're
lucky.
7040777. So
Yes.
you have 4 sevens. 7040777. And what is your website?
It's oraclelawgroup.com.
And is that your French? That's the Greek oracle?
No, have you seen The Matrix?
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember the oracle in The Matrix?
I freaking do.
Ryan's the Matrix
I love
expert.
the Matrix.
Don't you love The Matrix?
Is that the one with the red and the blue pill, or the red
Yeah.
hole?
Yeah,
and
that's
the-
Morpheus.
Morpheus.
So who was Ryan's really into the Matrix. I watched it once.
Ryan, we're going to have to hang out.
You know what I'm most proud of? What's that guy? Canal Reeves? Is that his name?
Keanu, yeah.
Canal Reeves is of the all these movie stars that get $10 million a film are. He's like the 5th richest. He's in the top 5 richest movie stars of all time, because what people don't realize is when they have financial problems, they never have an income problem. It's always a spending problem.
Right.
And what I'm most proud of that guy is when he made bank, he still lived like a normal person, and he put it away. And I forgot the amount of money, but he said, he's a gazillionaire, and he still is just a little California surf boy, is a simpleton. I went to Creighton in Omaha, Nebraska, and we used to drive by Warren Buffett's house. He had this little $100,000, 100-year-old home. And even now, when he has like $56 billion, he still has that little home, and his car is like 25 years old. And all these people think that they need to get a raise from their boss, they need to win the lottery, or they need to do all these things. No, you just need to quit spending. You know
Or
what I mean?
maybe shift your focus. Shift your focus to doing what you love and not worry if the money comes or not. Obviously you have to eat, but I think that people like Ruth and Buffett, if you look at Buffett's background, Buffett's passionate about problem solving. Buffett's passionate about recognizing patterns. That's his motivator. And then the money comes. Reeves really is an actor. He really is so gifted at creating a persona that doesn't exist. And then the money comes. So yes, you have to watch your spending. I'm not saying that's not true, but I think if you shift your focus to what's in your heart and what makes you want to get out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, to get on conference calls all over the world, to talk to people, or just to express an idea, I think that everything else comes. So I think that if you shift your focus from how much money am I going to make, and again, we all have to pay our bills, to God, what is my motivator? What makes me want to get up? I think that that's probably more important. I think that's why those guys are so successful. And that's not an easy thing to do. Finding what your passion is and what your motivator, I don't think that's as easy as anybody wants to tell you, because we are dynamic individuals and we're changing, and what you're passionate about one year or the next year or the next week may not be the same thing. You know?
Right. When you, I'm 55. I've had a couple different lives. You have your single life, your kid's life, all these things. But
like
again,
actually, or like, are we talking different life or different personalities? Because this could be a really interesting discussion.
Different passions
Ryan?
over the years. But where
Do you have
was,
any input?
where was the oracle? I'm still missing the oracle in the Matrix.
You remember the oracle was that little old grandma baking cookies?
Yes.
And she was smoking cigarettes and
Right.
drinking vodka from a jam jar?
Right.
Right? And everybody was around her doing amazing things with their thoughts and solving problems and stepping outside their comfort zone to find who they are and what's important. As an oracle, we want to be able to say to people, you can do it. Your thoughts are important.
Wow, that's
Let's
profound.
work with you. Let's solve this problem. So I was kind of inspired also to it. She looks like she had a really nice life, because baking cookies and drinking vodka all day looks okay. As long as you don't drive. Don't drive.
Oracle Law
You
Group.
can drive if you eat the cookies. You cannot drive if you eat the vodka.
So
drink the vodka.
So Oracle Law Group, do you have what's the email to Oracle Law Group?
Just oraclelawgroup.com.
And then what's the to send an email if there's
If you go to oraclelawgroup.com, we have contact.
You have a
form.
contact
Yeah,
deal.
absolutely.
And the number is 480-704-0777. So you would consider you're an Ahwatukee lawyer for decades as basically a problem solver. And if they call you, you're going to help them solve their problem, and there may be free resource available. You may talk them out of it, or you may help them, or you'll find someone that will help them.
And redirect them. And we understand money is tight, and so we don't want people to spend money on an attorney unless they need to. And sometimes you need to, unfortunately. But honestly, probably about 60 or 70% of the people who call for help, we can refer them to resources where they're not going to have to spend money on lawyers, which is a good thing.
So when I get a call, when a dental office, when you go to the dentist, you want a cleaning, exam, maybe a filling, a burger. I mean, that's our bread and butter.
And a sticker. I want a sticker at the dentist. I want a sticker.
Exams. And my favorite child is the one who stands and they'll be like 2 or 3 years old and they'll say, "Can I have an extra one for my baby brother?" And I'm like, wow, that is so sweet. And
then you congratulate the mom and say, "I didn't know you had a second child," just like I don't. What?
But
Slick kid.
If you had 100 calls, what are your top 3, 4, 5 calls? Who's calling you?
Well, let me give you an example without names. So I'm going to change the facts up a bit. But honestly, the most satisfying and gratifying calls are people who just aren't as blessed as you and I to have the education that we had, or the support group that we have. I had an older lady. She's lovely. Her husband was telling her all sorts of things about insurance and divorce and whatnot that weren't true. She was terrified. She came into the office pretty much hysterical, and being able to sit her down and explain to her that she matters as a person in the legal system and that her husband does not own her. And believe it or not, that happens a lot. And that she has rights and that we can help her, not to have her world ripped out from her. Those are the most gratifying. When they walk up and they go, "I'm going to be okay. I came and talked to you. I know I'm going to be okay." And watching them become empowered when they leave because they have knowledge. And that can happen with people who've been charged with something. People who may have been charged with something, for the most part, our people are really good people. They're devastated. They could be charged with disorderly conduct. It's never happened to them before. They may have, raised their voice in a way, it may not be nice, but I don't think it's criminal. And they are so angry with themselves, and they're so upset, and their sense of self is gone. They don't see themselves the same way, and they think their world is over. And we can sit down and say, "You're going to be okay," and they will be okay. And we can reassure them that we've been doing it for years and years and years, and they will be all right once we get them through that process. So those are the most gratifying.
Well, that brings up another issue. When I was a freshman in dental school 34 years ago, I graduated in 87, got there in 83, dentistry was considered a man's profession. And it was, and now Arizona has 2 dental schools, one in Mesa and Glendale. The classes are half women. But I look around the world. I mean, the United States never had a woman president. Almost all the CEOs of the Fortune 500, almost all of them are men. Mm-hmm. Many countries, women can't even drive or go to school. Is being a lawyer, is that a good old boys club, or is that a 50-50 woman boys? Talk about women's.
Are we on camera?
Yes.
Take the fifth. Statistically, absolutely. When you look at women in law, they are in the underpaid positions. They do not have the economic power. And there's actually a category for women lawyers. They're so disadvantaged economically and as partners in law firms and litigators that there's a special category now. You know how they have special categories for minorities. Mm-hmm. Whether your ethnicity be African American or Aboriginal, as they say in Canada, or Native American here, they have special set-asides to try to get you business so that these minority and women-owned businesses can get ahead. There's something called an 8M category now. Okay? 8M, as in Mary. Okay, you know what?
Wasn't that an album by some rapper?
I don't know. I have to look that up.
Who was the 8M? 8 Mile. That was
Speaking of Eminem.
Eminem. 8 Mile.
Movie 8 Mile.
8 Mile. Okay, but there's a category 8M.
Thank you for being here, Ryan. We'd be lost without our millennial.
Written by the rapper Eminem. But anyway, 8M is a category.
A lot of people are familiar with 8A. It's set-asides for minorities.
8.
the number 8A as an apple.
Okay.
So it's a category that if you can qualify as a disadvantaged business, because you could be not a minority, but you came from a very poor background. You could be a minority, but you didn't have the opportunity. So they had this category 8A. It's been around the SBA, spelled Business Administration, forever. Well, they started looking at women-owned businesses, and they looked at all the NAICS codes, or NAICS codes, as some people say, which are all the industries in the United States, and they use those codes for government purchasing. And they looked to see, and they said, okay, let's see where women are not represented as ownership. And they came up with 87 categories where women ownership is 5% or less in that industry. And then they came out with another subcategory that's considered to be economically disadvantaged as well as underrepresented, and women in law are one.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's just, you'll see women judges and whatnot, and we've made lots of headway, but statistically, we're so underrepresented that we do have our own category for federal government purchasing purposes.
I was at a dental conference in Winnipeg, Canada, with Ryan.
Hopefully not in the winter.
No, was it winter?
It was cold out.
It was
think
cold.
It was like fall, but it was...
Just built this $500 million human rights museum. So we thought we want to go see that. And a lot of the...
Was it $500 million Canadian or American? Just kidding. Because it's like worth 12 cents here.
And a lot of the stuff, I already knew all those stories. The American Indian, slavery, the Holocaust. I already really knew a lot about those stories. And I didn't really learn anything new on those stories. And then I went around this one exhibit, and it was sports. And they're showing like when after I was born, I was 10 years old, this woman used to run the Boston Marathon every year. It was all men. And every year, they had these pictures of these big, 6 fat Irish police officers chasing down this little gazelle, body tackling her. And I thought to myself, she had to do that every year for years before they let women even run. And I'm sitting here thinking, how were they thinking that a marathon was a boys only? You just don't realize until someone sticks your face in a museum. And it's like, that's just bizarre that in 2017, that still goes on in Arizona.
Oh, I still get called young lady, little lady. They ask me if I'm the paralegal.
Yeah, and one of my favorite...
Which is not an insult, but it's just like, don't just...
One of my
too
favorite...
presumptuous is the problem.
One of my favorite dentists that practiced out here for years till she passed away was Susan Wires. I went to school with her at the University of Missouri. And the 2 oral surgery instructors were big athletic men. They both looked like Larry Fitzgerald. Tall, African-American, muscular.
Cut,
They'd
yeah.
be pulling these wisdom teeth. You'd see triceps popping out and all this stuff like that. And they were just the two smartest, most fit, most class act. My 2 favorite role models in the class. And at first you think, you just got to be really big and muscular. And then there's this little Susan Wires. She couldn't have been 5'5" and a $125, and she just did her bing, 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 and she'd take him out faster. And all those guys are like, well, should we go watch the 2 oral and maxillofacial surgeons who are ripped, taking 5 minutes to remove a wisdom tooth, or this girl that's popping every one of them out in a minute? And I said to her, Susan, do you lift weights or something? And she's looking at me like, really? She goes, it's all leverage. It's leverage. It's not picking weight. It's leverage. And but I thought back then it was really a man's world.
Yeah, it's making my teeth hurt now. You're talking
how
about
long?
popping teeth out. Can we talk about something else because it hurts?
What would you tell to some little girl at Desert Vista or Mountain Point that's thinking, I want to grow up and be a lawyer just like Melanie? What would you tell her?
I would welcome her to come and shadow me.
Really?
I would see what days are like. I would tell her to visualize the life that she wants to live, not her profession, but does she want to be a parent or not? Does she want to travel or not? I would reverse engineer for her. So I would say, tell me the life that you want to live when you're 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. And then I would reverse engineer the career that fit that lifestyle. It may be a lot, it may not be.
Yeah. What is the lifestyle like as a lawyer? And is it an 8 to 5 job, or is it a
actually try not to tell people I'm a lawyer because I would like for them just to know that I'm Melanie. So if you're not careful, being a lawyer can define who you are. And I don't think that's healthy. It's a profession. We rent ourselves and our skills out. And I think the reason why lawyers have so many issues is because they don't understand that what they do is not who they are, and it merges too much. So I try my best to leave the work at the office and then just be myself elsewhere. You know, my phone's always on, so I'm always available to people no matter what's going on. You do a lot of listening, a lot of proactive listening. And you start to discern very quickly who wants help and who you can help and who you can't. So you're always paying attention. There is a higher expectation in situations where there's problems arise. There's disagreements with people. There's a higher expectation that you can go in and kind of help solve different problems with people. It's a great gift, and I'm so grateful when somebody comes to me and says, "Can you help me? This is the worst time in my life. Can you help me with that?" That is such a compliment and an honor. So it's from that perspective, it's great. You know, you really do get insight into people. You get insight into problem solving, and you get insight into what heartbreak is, because you see so much heartbreak, and that's a part where I wish I had my magic wand. You know, if someone's passed or someone's been killed in an accident, you can't undo that. If someone's been injured, you can't undo that. So it's an education, not just in book smarts, but it's an education in people, and I'm really grateful for that.
Well, you're one of the smartest people I know.
That's sweet.
And I've called you.
Okay, you guys, stop. My staff is laughing.
I've called you a couple of times in the last 30 years, and you were amazing.
Thank
Her
you.
name is Melanie Beauchamp.
Beauchamp, Beauchamp.
Just
Whatever you
it was
prefer.
just-
Ryan,
just-
you decide.
Just call her Melanie at 480-704-0777. Go to oraclelawgroup.com. Melanie, thank you so much
Thanks for having me.
for coming by the
Great
house
to see you.
and talking Ahwatukee
All right.
Law for an hour. Good to see you.
Good to see you.